Don't leave them behind. A voice seemed to whisper through the storm as Roxy, a soaked German shepherd, staggered through the knee-deep mud. Her 4 tiny pups huddled under her belly, shivering and trembling with each gust of wind. The forest around them was dark and heavy with rain, the trees bending under the weight of water and wind, their leaves slapping against one another like the drums of an approaching storm. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the desperate determination in Roxy's amber eyes as she pressed forward, the sound of her paws squelching in the mud, each step a careful measure of hope against the cold, dark night. Across the clearing, headlights pierced the downpour, reflecting off wet branches, and a jeep slowly navigated the slippery path, boots crunching against gravel hidden beneath leaves, carrying Corporal Ethan Ward, a man whose tall, broad-shouldered frame seemed at odds with the fragile scene unfolding before him. Rain plastered his hair to his scalp, water dripping down his jacket as he spotted Roxy, halted mid-step, gaze locked on the trembling mother dog and her tiny, vulnerable pups. His heart quickened, a mixture of adrenaline and empathy pressing against his chest as he threw the jeep into park and moved toward them, every motion calculated to disturb the storm as little as possible. Roxy let out a low whine, a sound of both warning and plea, and Ethan froze for a fraction, letting the sound reach him fully, imprinting the urgency of the moment into his mind. He knelt, mud oozing into his gloves as he gently scooped up the smallest pup first, feeling its tiny heartbeat flutter against his palm, fragile and insistent, while Roxy stepped back slightly, still trembling, still watchful, her nose twitching, her eyes never leaving him. Thunder rolled overhead, vibrating through the air and underfoot, and a streak of lightning revealed the other pups, nestled in a shallow depression formed by the rain-soaked earth, their tiny forms nearly invisible against the brown of mud and leaves. Ethan reached for them, his movements careful, deliberate, speaking softly. "It's okay. You're safe now." And the words seemed to echo. In the storm, carrying a calm that Roxy immediately sensed, inching closer with tentative trust, pressing her wet body against the small barrier of his coat as he gently wrapped the remaining pups, each secured against his chest, their warmth seeping through his jacket, grounding him in the moment. The wind continued to lash, but there was a rhythm now, a fragile heartbeat of trust forming between the human and the dog, a bond reinforced in the midst of chaos, every shiver and whimper a reminder of vulnerability and the weight of responsibility. Lightning illuminated the forest floor again, revealing a clear path toward the jeep, and Roxy stepped with him, her paws slipping in the mud but her resolve unbroken, nudging Ethan with her nose, a silent instruction, a plea for care, and in that instant, he understood not only the fragility of life around him, but the quiet miracle unfolding. The survival of 4 tiny lives balanced against the storm and their mutual courage, leaving the scene poised on the edge of what would come next. A tense breath held between hope and relief. The Jeep engine hummed against the roar of the storm as Corporal Ethan Ward carefully maneuvered through the mud-slicked path, each tire crunching over stones hidden beneath puddles of rainwater, the headlights casting long streaks of light that danced across the wet branches of the forest. Roxy pressed close, her damp fur brushing against his arm, pups nestled securely in his jacket and backpack, their tiny bodies twitching occasionally, drawing a low, contented whine from her. Every step was a careful negotiation with the slippery earth, Ethan speaking softly, words meant more to calm the animals than himself. Almost there, just a little further. The wind gusted, bending the trees overhead and shaking the jeep slightly, but the bond between human and dog seemed to form an invisible shield, each trusting the other to navigate the treacherous terrain. A break in the trees revealed a small clearing ahead, where a cabin sat half-hidden beneath a canopy of soaked evergreens, smoke curling from the chimney in thin, hopeful streams, promising warmth and dry refuge. Ethan exhaled, the tension in, his shoulders easing slightly, and set a careful pace toward the cabin, lowering the pups gently onto the floorboards of the jeep while Roxy trotted beside him, every movement deliberate, scanning for hazards, her ears flicking at each sound. The rain began to lighten, a soft drizzle that left the forest sparkling, water droplets clinging to pine needles, each reflective bead like a tiny glimmer of hope. As they approached the cabin, the warm glow of lanterns inside welcomed them, and Ethan felt a strange mixture of relief and awe, the storm behind them and the sanctuary ahead. Roxy's tail lifted slightly, tentative happiness in her movement, her amber eyes reflecting the cabin light, and she let out a soft, reassuring bark to Ethan, as if to say, "We made it." The pups stirred in the jeep, stretching tiny limbs, eyes adjusting to the dim interior, tentative sniffing filling the space with curiosity. Ethan opened the cabin door, careful to keep the smallest pup in his arms, Roxy nudging the doorframe to follow, her presence steady, grounding, every muscle in her body a testament to endurance and loyalty. Inside, the air was warmer, infused with the scent of wood smoke and dry pine, comforting and familiar, and Ethan laid the pups gently on a soft blanket. Watching them settle, a sense of profound relief washing over him. Roxy circled once, sniffing and nudging each pup, confirming their safety, before resting close to the doorway, ears perked, eyes scanning the space, but relaxing into the security of human presence. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, letting the warmth of the cabin seep into his soaked jacket, watching the quiet miracle of survival unfold, the storm outside fading into memory, replaced by the sound of gentle breathing and the soft rustle of fur. The pups yawned and nestled closer together, Roxy's presence a constant, reassuring shadow, and Ethan whispered to himself, "Faith and trust can carry us through anything." Feeling the truth of those words settle like sunlight on damp earth, a calm understanding that the night's trials had passed, but the bond formed in mud, rain, and perseverance would carry forward, lingering in the warmth and quiet of the cabin as the forest outside slowly returned to its natural rhythm. The cabin was quiet now, the only sounds the soft rustling of Roxy adjusting herself near the pile of pups and the faint dripping of water from the roof where the storm still lingered outside. Corporal Ethan Ward moved slowly, making sure the floorboards did not creak too loudly, each step deliberate as he arranged a warm blanket in the corner for the puppies to huddle together. The amber light of a single lantern cast long, gentle shadows, illuminating Roxy's fur in shades of deep sable and ash gray, her eyes bright and alert, following every motion Ethan made. He knelt beside the blanket, letting the pups sniff his hands, their small whimpers fading into contented sighs as they felt safe in his presence. Roxy shifted closer, letting out a soft whine that was part reassurance and part cautious relief, and Ethan spoke to her gently, each word carrying calm and trust. "You are safe now, all of you. I will keep you safe." He ran his fingers along her damp coat, feeling the tension slowly melt away, the muscles relaxing under his touch. Outside, the storm began to ease, rain softening into a drizzle and wind calming, leaving the forest dripping and glistening in muted silver. Ethan opened a small window slightly to let in the fresh, cold air, carrying the scent of wet pine and the promise of a clearing sky. Roxy sniffed at the breeze, ears twitching as she processed the new smells, and the pups shifted, exploring the soft blanket with tentative curiosity, their little paws kneading the fabric as if testing its safety. Ethan stayed beside them, watching each movement, a quiet smile forming as the scene of survival and trust unfolded before him. He could feel the bond growing, not forced, but earned through the shared struggle of the storm, the careful attention, and the mutual understanding that had developed in these tense hours. Roxy, sensing the calm, lay down with a gentle thump, curling partially around the pups, her tail flicking occasionally as if counting each one, making sure they were all warm and secure. Ethan leaned back against the wall, his eyes tracing the flickering shadows and the gentle rise and fall of the puppies' small chests, absorbing the profound quiet that came after the storm. The cabin, once dark and uninviting, now held a sense of safety and hope, a small sanctuary carved out of chaos, where life had persevered and connections had been deepened. Each subtle sound, the soft sigh of a pup, the quiet shuffle of Roxy adjusting, resonated like a heartbeat in the room, steady and reassuring. Outside, the forest began to glimmer in the soft light of early dawn breaking through the clouds, the air filled with the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. while inside, warmth, trust, and the quiet miracle of survival lingered, binding man and dog together in unspoken understanding, a fragile, luminous hope poised to grow stronger with every breath, every glance, and every gentle movement. Morning light filtered through the dense canopy outside the cabin, painting the wet forest floor with pale streaks of gold and silver, while inside, the warmth of the small room enveloped Ethan, Roxy, and the pups in a gentle glow. Ethan moved quietly, arranging fresh blankets and a shallow dish of warm water for the puppies, each movement deliberate, careful not to startle them, while Roxy circled slowly, sniffing and nudging the pups, ensuring none were overlooked. The pups stirred and began to explore, tentative paws pressing against the soft fabric, their small noses twitching as they took in the new sense of warmth, dryness, and safety. Ethan spoke softly, his voice low but steady, telling them they were safe, that this was a place where storms could not touch them, where the world's harshness was held at bay for a while. Roxy settled near the edge of the blanket, curling around her pups protectively, but her posture relaxed slightly, trusting Ethan's care and the safety of the cabin. Outside, the rain had slowed to a mist, droplets glistening on pine needles and fallen leaves, the smell of wet earth mingling with the smoke from the cabin's small stove. Ethan crouched beside the pups, brushing a wet strand of fur from one tiny head, marveling at their resilience and quiet determination to survive. Each small sound, the soft whimper, a gentle sniff, the shuffle of tiny paws, was a rhythm of life asserting itself, a delicate music of trust and recovery. Roxy's eyes followed Ethan with unwavering focus, her ears twitching at each sound, every glance conveying the gratitude and bond forming in the quiet hours after the storm. The room felt alive with subtle movements, the interplay of fur, breathing, and gentle sighs marking the slow passage from fear to comfort. Ethan shifted a small heat lamp closer to the blanket, the soft hum mingling with the occasional creak of the cabin settling, adding to the cocoon of safety around the family of four-legged lives he had rescued. Roxy lifted her head, amber eyes catching the sunlight now spilling fully through the windows, a subtle flick of her tail acknowledging that the danger had passed and a moment of peace had arrived. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night's events ease from his shoulders, the quiet miracle of survival resonating in the soft warmth, the protective watch of Roxy, and the gentle rise and fall of the pups resting against her. Each small gesture, the careful lick of a nose, the nuzzle against his hand, the soft rustle as a paw shifted, told a story of trust, healing, and the beginning of a bond that would grow stronger with each shared sunrise. The cabin held a calm, a fragile sanctuary where the chaos of the storm was nothing more than memory, where life had triumphed in quiet, unassuming ways, and where Ethan, Roxy, and the puppies could linger in the warmth and safety of each other's presence, the promise of another day waiting beyond the windows, filled with hope, quiet companionship, and the soft certainty that they would face it together. The morning sunlight grew warmer, filtering through the cabin windows and touching the damp wooden floor with soft golden light, while Corporal Ethan Ward moved carefully among the pups, checking each one with gentle hands, brushing stray bits of fur from their small bodies, and murmuring quiet reassurances that seemed to carry through the room like a protective lullaby. Roxy followed closely, her amber eyes never leaving him, tail flicking slightly as she shifted to make room for each pup to stretch and explore the safe space that Ethan had prepared. Outside, the rain had completely stopped, leaving the forest glistening with water on every leaf and branch, a fresh scent of pine and wet earth filling the air that seeped through the open window. Ethan carried the pups one by one to a soft pile of blankets near the stove, arranging them in a circle as Roxy settled herself protectively around them, pressing her body close, her warmth radiating comfort and security. Tiny whimpers and soft sighs filled the cabin as the pups explored their temporary home, discovering the smell of dry blankets, the faint scent of Roxy, and the reassuring presence of Ethan nearby. Each small paw step sounded delicate against the wooden floor, each gentle breath and quiet shuffle adding rhythm to the morning, a symphony of trust and recovery. Ethan knelt beside Roxy and the pups, running his fingers lightly over her damp fur, feeling the tension ease from her body as she relaxed, signaling that she understood they were finally safe. The cabin seemed to breathe with them, a quiet stillness punctuated only by the small sounds of the pup's contentment and the soft hum of the stove warming the room. Outside, the first hints of a clear sky appeared between the trees, golden rays illuminating the forest floor in dappled patterns, while inside, life and warmth filled every corner of the cabin, the storm a distant memory. Roxy gave a soft, satisfied sigh, her tail sweeping in slow, gentle arcs as the pups nuzzled against her, and Ethan could feel the profound connection forming, a bond of trust and mutual reliance, unspoken yet undeniably present. He smiled faintly, brushing the hair from his forehead, watching as the pups began to explore more confidently, their movements playful but careful, encouraged by the safe boundaries set by Roxy and the gentle guidance he provided. Each glance exchanged between Ethan and Roxy conveyed gratitude and understanding, a silent communication that they were a team, united in the care and protection of the vulnerable lives they now shared. The warmth of the morning sunlight grew stronger, filtering through the cabin and bathing the room in golden hues, illuminating the tiny bodies of the pups as they snuggled close to Roxy, their breathing slow and steady, the cabin alive with the quiet miracle of survival, trust, and the promise of more peaceful days ahead. The afternoon sun climbed higher, sending warm light through the open windows of the cabin and casting long, golden streaks across the wooden floor as Corporal Ethan Ward moved quietly, making sure each pup had room to rest and explore. Roxy followed his movements, her body low but eyes bright, alert to every sound, every motion, guiding her pups with subtle nudges and gentle whines, ensuring they felt safe in the new environment. Ethan carefully lifted one pup, holding it against his chest, letting it sniff his jacket and settle into the warmth of his arms, while the others watched, tails wagging slowly with tentative curiosity. The cabin smelled of dry wood, pine smoke, and faintly of wet fur, a combination that marked both survival and comfort. Outside, the forest shimmered under a clearing sky, droplets of rain still clinging to leaves and branches, sparkling in the sunlight, the air crisp and cool with the scent of damp earth. Ethan set the pup down gently near the blanket, stepping back to give Roxy space to approach, and she leaned down, nudging each of her pups with careful attention, pressing their small bodies close to her, as if to reinforce the safety they had found. One by one, the pups explored the cabin floor, sniffing, stepping cautiously, their tiny paws making soft sounds against the wood, ears twitching at every subtle noise, learning that they were safe, that the world outside the storm had not claimed them. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, observing the scene, marveling at the resilience and instinctive care displayed by Roxy, her amber eyes catching the light and reflecting trust, patience, and a quiet sense of triumph over the night's chaos. Each small whimper, each tentative sniff, each careful shuffle of a paw told a story of recovery and the formation of a bond deeper than words could convey, a relationship built on mutual reliance and the unspoken understanding of survival. The warmth of the cabin wrapped around them. All, the gentle hum of the stove blending with the soft rustle of fur and the occasional sigh of a contented pup, creating a rhythm of life and hope. Ethan whispered to Roxy, his voice calm and steady. "You kept them safe, all of you." And the sound seemed to resonate through the room, met by a soft whine from Roxy, a response both of acknowledgement and trust. The pups began to nestle closer together, exploring the blankets and the small space with a growing sense of security, and Roxy shifted to accommodate them, stretching slightly, her movements fluid and careful, every gesture protective yet relaxed. Ethan looked around, noting the contrast between the chaos outside and the calm within, and he felt the profound weight of the quiet miracle that had brought them here, the survival of 4 lives intertwined with his care and the unwavering devotion of a mother determined to protect her family. Outside, birds began to sing softly, the forest alive with gentle movement and light, and inside, the cabin held a sense of permanence and safety, a fragile sanctuary where life had endured, trust had been forged, and the bonds of loyalty and care would continue to grow with every passing hour, every careful glance, and every gentle touch. The light shifted, softening into the pale gold of late afternoon as Corporal Ethan Ward moved carefully around the cabin, checking that Roxy and her pups were comfortable, the warmth from the stove mingling with the gentle breeze drifting in through the open windows. The pups had grown bolder, crawling over one another and exploring their small sanctuary with tentative curiosity, sniffing the edges of blankets and the smooth wooden floor, while Roxy remained close, circling and nudging each one, amber eyes bright, ears flicking at every sound, ensuring her family felt safe in this temporary haven. Ethan knelt beside them, brushing a strand of damp fur from one of the tiny heads, murmuring softly, "It is okay. You are safe here," his voice steady and calm, reverberating through the quiet cabin. Outside, the forest glimmered under the last traces of rain, droplets clinging to leaves and pine needles, sunlight catching them and sparkling. Reflections, while the scent of wet earth and pine filled the cabin through the open window. Ethan adjusted a small pile of blankets near the stove, arranging them so the pups could curl up together, warm and protected, while Roxy stretched slightly, settling her body to partially encircle the young ones, pressing them close against her, a quiet demonstration of the instinctive care that had guided her through the storm. The cabin seemed to breathe along with them, every sigh, whimper, and shuffle forming a rhythm of recovery, life, and trust that flowed through the room, as if the space itself acknowledged the passage from fear to security. Ethan observed quietly, noting the soft interplay of shadows cast by the flickering stove light, the gentle rise and fall of Roxy's chest, the tentative movements of the pups, and felt a deep sense of wonder at the quiet miracle of survival unfolding in these hours. A tiny paw pressed against his hand, prompting a soft chuckle, and he responded with a gentle scratch behind a floppy ear, feeling the delicate warmth and subtle heartbeat of life that had endured the storm. Roxy's gaze met his, and in that silent exchange was a profound communication, gratitude, trust, and the shared knowledge of what had been overcome together. Ethan moved to fetch a small bowl of warm water and a light meal for the pups, setting it near the blanket and watching as their tiny noses twitched at the new smells, tails wagging slightly, the soft sound of contented whimpers filling the room. Outside, the forest shimmered in late sunlight, birds beginning to call gently across the clearing, and the gentle hum of life returning to normal resonated with the calm within the cabin, where warmth, trust, and the quiet resilience of mother and pups created a sanctuary both fragile and strong. Ethan leaned back slightly against the wall, watching Roxy adjust herself protectively around the pups, the smallest nudging against her chest, eyes closing in tentative relaxation, and he felt the profound weight of shared survival, a moment of quiet grace where human care and animal loyalty had intersected, leaving a sense of awe and calm that would linger well into the evening, a delicate balance of trust, comfort, and hope for the days to come. The golden light of late afternoon deepened, casting a soft glow over the cabin as Corporal Ethan Ward moved slowly, keeping a watchful eye on Roxy and her pups who were beginning to settle more comfortably, their tiny forms nestled together on the blankets he had arranged. Roxy lay partially curled around them, her head resting gently on the floor, amber eyes still alert but calmer now, scanning the cabin for any sign of danger, every muscle relaxed yet ready to protect her young. Ethan crouched beside the blanket, brushing a damp strand of fur from one pup, murmuring softly, "You are safe now, little ones, all of you." And the words seemed to hang in the warm air, carrying reassurance that resonated through the room. Outside, the forest sparkled in the soft sunlight filtering through the thinning clouds, droplets of rain catching the light like tiny prisms on pine needles and branches, a quiet reminder of the storm that had passed. The pups began to stretch, tiny legs stiff from the long hours of tension, and they sniffed cautiously around the blanket, exploring their new surroundings with tentative curiosity, nudging one another and letting out soft, satisfied whimpers. Roxy nudged each pup gently, encouraging their exploration, her body shifting slightly to accommodate them, her tail sweeping in small arcs as she adjusted, a rhythm of care and watchfulness. Ethan adjusted a small pile of blankets closer to the stove, the heat radiating warmth through the room, and the pups instinctively moved toward it, pressing against the fabric and each other, their tiny bodies huddling for comfort and security. The soft hum of the stove, mingled with the quiet sounds of breathing and tiny paw steps, created a peaceful rhythm that filled the cabin, a gentle melody of recovery and trust. Ethan leaned back slightly, watching as Roxy stretched her legs, curling around her pups and giving them small, reassuring licks, each movement a silent affirmation that they were protected. The warmth in the room contrasted with the cool, misty forest outside. The smell of wet pine and earth carried faintly through the open window, mixing with the cozy scent of blankets and dry wood. Each glance between Ethan and Roxy held a quiet understanding, a bond formed through shared experience and the trust of survival, unspoken yet palpable. The pups began to nap, tiny bodies rising and falling with the rhythm of gentle breathing, while Roxy's ears flicked occasionally at distant sounds, her body relaxed but attentive. Ethan watched the small family, feeling the weight of the quiet miracle that had brought them here, the fragility and resilience of life intertwined in this single room, a testament to patience, care, and the power of trust. The cabin felt like a sanctuary, the sunlight stretching longer as evening approached, bathing the room in warm, golden tones, every movement, every sigh, and every glance a gentle proof of endurance and hope, leaving a lingering sense of calm and the quiet promise of tomorrow. The evening light began to fade, softening into long shadows that stretched across the cabin floor as Corporal Ethan Ward moved quietly among Roxy and her pups, making sure each was comfortable and calm, the warmth from the stove filling the room with a gentle, steady heat. The pups had become more confident, exploring their little corner of the cabin, stepping cautiously over the blankets and sniffing the floorboards, while Roxy shifted to watch over each movement, amber eyes alert yet calm, ears twitching at every faint noise, ready to protect but trusting Ethan's presence. Ethan sat cross-legged near the blanket, observing the small family, brushing his fingers lightly over Roxy's damp fur and murmuring softly, "You have done well, all of you," his voice steady and reassuring, blending into the quiet hum of the room. The pups responded with soft whimpers and small movements, exploring their surroundings and occasionally nudging one another, their tiny bodies gaining strength and comfort in the presence of both Ethan and Roxy. Outside, the forest was settling into the calm of evening, the last rays of sunlight filtering through the trees, glinting on wet leaves and the occasional droplet of moisture lingering from the storm, carrying the crisp scent of pine and damp earth into the cabin. Ethan placed a small bowl of warm water and soft food near the blanket, watching as the pups approached with cautious curiosity, sniffing and tasting, encouraged by Roxy's gentle guidance, her body curling slightly around them to offer both warmth and protection. Each subtle sound, the rustle of paws, the soft sighs of settling pups, the quiet shuffle of Roxy adjusting herself, formed a rhythm of life that filled the cabin, a testament to the survival and resilience of the small family. Ethan leaned back slightly against the wall, breathing in the calm, feeling the profound weight of what had passed and the fragile yet steadfast bond that had formed between human and dog. Roxy lifted her head, amber eyes catching the dim light, ears flicking in a subtle gesture of acknowledgement toward Ethan, a silent affirmation of trust and gratitude. The pups, sensing the calm and warmth, nestled closer together, tiny paws touching one another, bodies rising and falling with gentle, steady breaths, while Roxy's presence remained a constant, soothing shield, her soft whines and nudges guiding them toward comfort and safety. Ethan watched the scene with quiet reverence, the cabin alive with the subtle interactions of survival, trust, and care, each glance, each movement a reminder of the miracle that had allowed them to endure. The air was filled with the faint scent of wood smoke and wet fur, a blend that spoke of shelter, warmth, and shared experience, while the forest outside settled into evening stillness. Ethan gently stroked Roxy's fur, feeling the tension release from her body as the pups drifted into quiet rest, and he realized that in the midst of the storm and chaos, a profound calm had been achieved, a fragile yet enduring sanctuary where human kindness and animal devotion had intersected to create a moment of quiet grace, leaving the room infused with trust, warmth, and the subtle promise of a peaceful night ahead. The first light of evening stretched through the cabin windows, casting a warm amber glow over Corporal Ethan Ward as he moved gently among Roxy and her pups, ensuring each one was comfortable and settled. The pups had become more lively, exploring the blankets and the small space with cautious excitement, their tiny paws pressing against the wood floor and nudging one another, soft whimpers and sighs marking each tentative step. Roxy shifted closer, her body curling around the group, amber eyes attentive yet relaxed, ears flicking at each subtle sound, maintaining a protective presence while signaling to the pups that they were safe to explore. Ethan crouched beside the blanket, brushing his fingers lightly over the damp fur of a pup, whispering, "You are safe. All of you. You are home now." His voice calm and measured, filling the cabin with a quiet sense of reassurance that echoed against the walls. The soft hum of the stove mingled with the tiny rustling of fur and gentle sniffing, creating a rhythm of life that resonated throughout the room, a melody of trust and recovery. Outside, the forest reflected the softening light, droplets of water glistening on pine needles and branches, the scent of damp earth and pine drifting in through the open window, mingling with the warmth of the cabin and the subtle aroma of dry blankets. Ethan arranged a small pile of soft towels and blankets in a corner near the stove, letting the pups settle closer to warmth while Roxy nudged and adjusted their positions with gentle precision, ensuring each pup was nestled comfortably, a subtle smile tugging at the corners of Ethan's mouth as he observed her careful attention. The pups gradually became more relaxed, curling together, their tiny bodies rising and falling in steady breaths, ears flicking occasionally as they explored the boundaries of their safe space. Roxy rested her head lightly on the blanket, one paw stretched toward a small pup, her eyes bright with trust and calm, conveying a quiet reassurance that this place was their sanctuary. Ethan leaned back slightly against the wall, the warmth of the room and the calm energy of the small family settling over him like a blanket, each subtle sound, the soft whimpers, gentle paw steps, and occasional sigh, resonating as proof of the fragile yet enduring miracle of survival and care. The cabin seemed to hold a pulse, a rhythm of life that encompassed Ethan, Roxy, and the pups, creating a sanctuary that was both delicate and strong, filled with the quiet understanding of trust, safety, and shared endurance. Outside, the forest began to dim with the approach of evening, the sky tinged with soft shades of lavender and gold, while inside, warmth, comfort, and the subtle miracle of life held sway, each movement, glance, and gentle touch reinforcing the bond between human and dog, a connection forged in storm and nurtured in calm, leaving the cabin a space of quiet grace and enduring hope. The cabin was bathed in the gentle glow of early evening, the amber light from the stove blending with the soft streaks of sunlight filtering through the windows as Corporal Ethan Ward moved among Roxy and her pups, his hands brushing lightly over fur and blankets, ensuring comfort and safety. The pups were more confident now, crawling over each other and exploring the space with cautious curiosity, their small noses sniffing the air, their tiny paws pressing softly against the wooden floor, while Roxy remained close, her body partially curled around them, eyes alert yet calm, ears flicking with each subtle sound in the room. Ethan knelt beside the blanket, whispering softly, "You are safe now. All of you. You can rest." And the words carried through the quiet cabin, resonating in the steady rhythm of small breaths and gentle movements. The pups began to settle, tiny bodies pressing closer to one another and to Roxy, a growing warmth and sense of security enveloping them, their eyes closing slowly as they absorbed the calm and safety of the room. Ethan adjusted a small pile of blankets near the stove, creating a soft nest for the pups, and Roxy nudged them gently into place with her nose, her amber eyes meeting Ethan's in a silent acknowledgement of shared care and trust. Outside, the forest reflected the soft golden light of evening, water droplets on pine needles catching the last rays of sun, the air crisp and fragrant with the scent of wet earth and pine, drifting through the open window and mingling with the warmth inside. Ethan observed the tiny movements of the pups, their soft whimpers and quiet sighs forming a delicate rhythm that filled the cabin, the gentle rustle of fur and the occasional shuffle of paws creating a soothing cadence of life and resilience. Roxy lifted her head, amber eyes bright and trusting, tail moving slowly, marking the steady heartbeat of care and protection that she provided. Ethan leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle, appreciating the quiet miracle of survival, the trust forged in storm and recovery, and the growing bond that united them all. The pups shifted, exploring a little further, nudging each other and Roxy as they became more comfortable, their small bodies rising and falling with gentle breaths, the cabin filled with the warmth of shared endurance and connection. Ethan's voice remained soft and calm, a comforting presence in the peaceful room, while the sunlight faded gradually into evening, painting the walls with long, golden shadows. Each glance exchanged between Ethan and Roxy carried unspoken gratitude and understanding, a silent communication of trust, safety, and companionship. The forest outside grew quiet with the approaching night, birds calling softly in the distance, while inside, the cabin maintained a steady, warm rhythm of life, the interplay of fur, breath, and gentle movements marking the delicate balance of comfort, care, and quiet joy. Ethan reached over to Roxy, stroking her head gently, feeling the warmth of her body and the soft rise and fall of her chest, and for a moment, the world outside the cabin seemed to fade away, leaving only the serene, unspoken miracle of a mother's devotion, the pup's fragile trust, and the enduring bond between human and dog. The evening settled into a calm hush, the soft glow from the stove mingling with the fading sunlight to bathe the cabin in golden warmth as Corporal Ethan Ward sat quietly, observing Roxy and her pups. The tiny family had grown comfortable, exploring the small space with a gentle curiosity, noses twitching, paws pressing softly against the floor, while Roxy remained close, partially curled around them, amber eyes alert yet calm, a protective presence that reassured both pups and human. Ethan gently lifted one pup, placing it near the center of the blankets. Watching as the others gradually followed, Roxy nudging each one into place with careful precision, her body shifting to accommodate their movements, creating a sense of safety and security that radiated through the cabin. The air carried the faint scent of pine and wet earth from outside, mingling with the warmth of the stove and the subtle smell of dry blankets and fur, filling the room with an atmosphere of calm and recovery. Ethan whispered softly to Roxy, "You did well, you kept them safe," and her ears twitched in acknowledgement, eyes meeting his with a quiet understanding, the unspoken bond of trust and gratitude passing between them. The pups began to settle into a cozy pile, tiny bodies pressing together for warmth, their gentle breathing forming a rhythm that echoed softly in the quiet room, while Roxy's tail flicked slowly, eyes scanning the cabin with contented vigilance. Ethan leaned back slightly, taking in the scene, noting how the light from the windows painted soft shadows across the floor and blankets, illuminating the tiny forms of the pups and the graceful lines of Roxy's body, a living testament to resilience, care, and the quiet miracle of survival. Each small sound, the soft whimpers of the pups, the subtle shuffle of paws, the occasional nuzzle from Roxy, formed a cadence of life, a delicate symphony of trust, safety, and the slowly strengthening bond between human and dog. Outside, the forest was still, the rain long gone, with droplets glistening on the pine needles, the air fresh and crisp with the scent of earth and new growth. Ethan's hands brushed lightly over Roxy's fur as she shifted, pressing closer to the pups, a silent affirmation of her maternal care, and he felt the profound weight of the moment, the quiet grace of survival, and the enduring connection that had formed through the storm, through patience, and through care. The cabin seemed to hold its own heartbeat, steady and warm, every glance, every nuzzle, every gentle motion reinforcing the trust that had grown between them. The pups' eyes slowly closed, bodies curling closer to one another, to Roxy, to the blankets that offered warmth, and Ethan watched in quiet awe, understanding that the smallest acts of mercy and patience had created this sanctuary, a moment of grace and hope that would linger in the warmth of the cabin long after the day had ended, leaving a delicate, enduring impression of trust, protection, and the quiet power of love. The last rays of sunlight faded completely, leaving the cabin bathed in the soft glow of the stove and lanterns as Corporal Ethan Ward leaned back against the wall, watching Roxy and her pups settle into a deep, peaceful rest. The tiny family had grown comfortable and secure, exploring and snuggling together, each pup's gentle rise and fall of breath syncing with Roxy's protective presence, her body partially curled around them, amber eyes relaxed but watchful, ears flicking softly at every sound. Ethan carefully adjusted the blankets around them, tucking the edges to provide warmth and comfort, feeling the fragile, profound weight of the quiet miracle that had unfolded in the past hours. Outside, the forest had grown calm and still, the rain gone, and a faint evening breeze carried the scent of wet pine and soil into the cabin, mingling with the warmth of wood smoke and the subtle scent of fur and blankets. Ethan's gaze moved slowly over each pup, observing their tentative yet steady confidence, small paws exploring gently, tiny noses sniffing the room, ears twitching as they absorbed the sounds and smells of their safe haven. Roxy shifted slightly, nudging a small pup closer, tail sweeping in gentle arcs across the blanket, her presence a silent reassurance that the world outside no longer held danger. Ethan spoke in a low, calm voice, words gentle and deliberate. "You are safe now, all of you, and tomorrow will bring a new day." And the quiet cabin seemed to embrace his sentiment, every movement and sound resonating with trust and relief. The pups nestled closer together, Roxy's body forming a protective arc around them, amber eyes reflecting the warmth and light, and Ethan allowed himself to feel the depth of connection that had formed, a bond forged through care, patience, and the shared experience of survival. The room was filled with subtle sounds, the soft sighs of contented pups, the shuffle of a paw, the gentle nudge of Roxy's nose, and each echoed like a heartbeat of the miracle that had occurred. Ethan leaned back slightly, letting his hands rest on his knees, absorbing the calm and serenity, recognizing the profound patience, care, and trust that had created this sanctuary. Outside, the last light of day filtered through the trees, glinting softly on damp branches, while inside, warmth, comfort, and the quiet miracle of life held sway. Each glance, each gentle motion, each soft whimper reinforcing the trust and bond that had grown. Roxy lifted her head briefly, amber eyes meeting Ethan's in silent acknowledgement, a subtle affirmation of gratitude and connection, before settling again, tail flicking slowly in contentment. The pups nestled deeper into her fur, tiny bodies rising and falling in rhythmic breaths, and Ethan felt a serene understanding of the fragility and strength of life, the endurance of love, and the quiet power of care. The cabin, bathed in warmth and soft light, held the echo of trust, survival, and devotion, a living testament to the enduring connection between human and dog, and the delicate, luminous hope that would carry them all forward into tomorrow and beyond, a lasting sanctuary of life, care, and quiet grace.